The alarm cut through the ship before I even opened my eyes. Red light spilled across the ceiling of my quarters, and the floor trembled under a distant impact. I was on my feet before I understood why. 3 years as commander of this vessel had taught my body to move faster than my mind. I am Vera Solkin, and no one on this ship sits beside me. No one has for a long time. I ran through the corridor, and the crew scattered ahead of me like water breaking around a stone. Nobody looked at my face. Nobody ever does. They know what I carry inside me, even if they never say the word out loud. My blood does something to living things that get too close for too long. I did not choose it. I did not ask for it. But the fear followed me anyway, from planet to planet, from crew to crew, until I stopped expecting anything different. On the bridge, the tactical display showed 3 raider ships closing fast, weapons hot, engines burning red. We were a transport vessel, not a warship. We had exactly 1 working cannon and a hull that groaned every time we jumped. "Status," I said, and my voice came out flat, the way it always does now. "They are hailing us," said Priya, my communications officer, without meeting my eyes, demanding the cargo. If we do not comply, they fire. The cargo was medical supplies bound for a colony that had lost half its children to a fever outbreak. I was not going to hand it over. "Evasive pattern," I ordered. "Charge the cannon." That was when I heard footsteps behind me that did not slow down, did not step wide around my chair the way everyone else's did. I turned, and there was Callum Ashworth, the human engineer we had picked up 2 months ago after his transport broke down near a supply station. He was young, plain-looking, with sandy hair and a crooked smile that never seemed to know when to quit. "I can boost cannon output by 40% if you give me 2 minutes in the reactor room," he said, looking straight at me. Not at my chair, not at my shoulder, at my eyes. Nobody looks at my eyes. "Do it," I said, because we did not have time to be surprised, though a part of me already was. He nodded and ran off, and I noticed something strange. He had not stepped around me to leave. He had walked past close enough that our arms nearly touched. The first raider ship opened fire, and the whole vessel shuddered. Sparks fell from the ceiling panel above navigation. I gripped the edge of my chair and watched the display, calculating angles, calculating odds, calculating how many of my crew would die if I made the wrong choice in the next 10 seconds. "Reactor boosted." Callum's voice came through the comm, breathless. "Cannon should hit twice as hard now. Fire when ready, Commander." I gave the order. Our single cannon lanced out and struck the lead raider ship across its engine housing. It spun off course, trailing smoke, and dropped out of the fight. 1 down. 2 remained, and they were angry now. "They are locking a boarding pod onto Section 4, Priya called out. "That is the cargo hold." I was already moving. Section 4 was 3 decks down, and if raiders got their hands on those medical supplies, an entire colony of children would pay the price. I grabbed a sidearm from the weapons locker as I ran, and I heard footsteps behind me again. Steady, unafraid. "Callum." "You should stay on the bridge," I said without turning around. "You should not go alone," he answered, matching my pace easily despite being out of breath. "Everyone else on this ship keeps 3 steps between themselves and you. I figure someone ought to walk beside you instead." I did not have time to ask him what he meant by that. We reached Section 4 just as the boarding pod tore through the outer hatch with a shriek of metal. 4 raiders in patched armor spilled through the breach, weapons raised. I did not hesitate. Years of training took over, and I moved through them with speed that most species cannot match, disarming the first 2 before they even understood I had closed the distance. The third raised his weapon toward me, and I caught his wrist and turned him aside. Callum, unarmed and untrained in any of this, threw himself against the 4th raider and knocked his aim wide just as the shot fired, sending it into the wall instead of at me. It was reckless. It was foolish. It could have gotten him killed, and it very nearly did, because the raider recovered fast and swung the butt of his weapon toward Callum's head. I crossed the distance in a heartbeat and caught the blow on my own forearm instead, absorbing the impact meant for him. The raider stumbled back, and I finished it quickly, disabling him without another word. The cargo hold went quiet except for our breathing. Callum looked at my arm, where a bruise was already forming. "You took that hit for me," he said. "You threw yourself at an armed man for me," I answered. "We are even." He grinned, that same crooked smile, like none of what just happened had frightened him at all. "Guess we are." We secured the raiders and called the bridge to report the hold clear. The remaining 2 raider ships broke off soon after, unwilling to lose more firepower for cargo that was no longer worth the fight. The colony would get its medicine after all. That night, after the adrenaline had drained out of my body and left me hollow and tired, I sat alone in the mess hall, the way I always did. Empty tables stretched around me. It was easier this way. Nobody had to pretend they were comfortable, and I did not have to watch them force themselves not to flinch. Footsteps approached, and a tray landed across from me. Callum sat down like it was the most ordinary thing in the galaxy, like I was not the reason 3 different crews had refused to serve under me over the years. "You know what I am," I said, watching him carefully. "You have seen the files. Everyone has by now." "I read them," he admitted, unwrapping his food without any hurry. "Something in your blood reacts badly with most nervous systems if contact goes on too long. Sounds rough, honestly. People die around me, Callum. Not because I want it, because I exist. People also live around you," he said simply. "That colony gets its medicine tonight because you would not back down. Those 2 raiders you knocked out are alive because you chose to disarm them instead of finishing the job. You are not a walking disaster, Vera. You are just someone people have not bothered to actually look at." Nobody had called me by my first name in longer than I could remember. It landed strangely in my chest, warm in a place that had gone cold years ago. "Why are you not afraid of me?" I asked because I needed to know, because it did not make sense, and I have never trusted things that do not make sense. He thought about it for a moment, chewing slowly, unbothered by the silence. "Where I come from, we used to be afraid of a lot of things too. Storms, the dark, each other, sometimes. But fear only makes sense if you never get close enough to understand what you are actually looking at. I got close. Turns out you are just tired, and lonely, and very good at your job. None of that scares me." I did not know what to say to that. I have faced down raider fleets and diplomatic ambushes and betrayals from my own government, and none of it left me as unsteady as one human sitting across from me with a crooked smile, eating dinner like it was nothing at all. "You could have been killed today," I said. "Standing that close to me in a fight, throwing yourself at an armed man." "So could you," he said. "That is usually how fights work." I found myself almost smiling, an expression that felt unfamiliar on my own face. Most people keep their distance from unfamiliar risk. "Most people," he agreed, "are not me." Over the following weeks, something in the ship began to shift, slowly, the way ice melts when no one is watching closely enough to notice, until it is already water. Priya started sitting a little closer during briefings. The engineering crew stopped stepping wide around my chair. It did not happen because I asked for it, and it did not happen overnight. It happened because they watched a human walk beside me, without flinching, day after day, and began to wonder what exactly they had been so afraid of. Callum never made a show of it. He never announced that he was proving a point. He simply kept sitting across from me at empty tables, kept walking without extra distance in the corridors, kept looking me in the eyes when he spoke, as if it cost him nothing at all. Months later, on a quiet evening with the stars stretched calm and endless outside the viewport, I found him in the observation deck, tinkering with some scrap of machinery that did not need fixing at all. He looked up when I entered, and there was no hesitation in it, no careful calculation of distance. "You know," I said, sitting beside him, closer than I had sat beside anyone in years, "you were the first person who ever chose to stay." "I was the first person who ever noticed there was something worth staying for," he said. Outside, the stars did not care about my blood, or my reputation, or the years of empty tables behind me, and for the first time since I could remember, neither did I. I had spent so long believing that distance was the safest thing I could offer the galaxy. But sitting there, beside someone who had never once stepped back, I understood that safety was never the point. Being seen was. And Callum Ashworth, an ordinary engineer with an extraordinary amount of nerve, had seen me before anyone else ever dared to try.